Today is a beautiful day to get outside in the garden. It is like 70 degrees in central Indiana, so I am taking advantage of that. And I have you out in my orchard garden to show you kind of some lessons that we've learned. I'd like to talk about the 5 pros and cons of permaculture gardening. Is it everything that it's hyped up to be? It is a huge topic in the homestead world. The idea of permaculture and having everything growing together in one space, like a mulch system over your grass so that you don't have to till it, so that you can have all this ecosystem working together. Well, we are trying to do that here in our orchard garden, and we started doing that this spring, and we are only not even 6 months into it, and we've learned some really big lessons. So I wanted to share that with you and encourage you that sometimes people don't always talk about the negative things and the hard things and the things that you find out as you do this type of system that might not be the best idea for you in your homestead. And we're still not sure if it's the best idea for us. One of the reasons we have decided to turn this space into an orchard garden is because we have not been able to keep up on our mowing. We have about an acre and we have a push mower. And so the Lord has just provided us with a push mower. We actually have 2, so we tag team. And we, use what God gives us to get things done. And so it's not been the easiest thing to mow this part of our property. Mowing this side with a push mower was taking us 4 or 6 hours, and sometimes if it rained or if we were working, we can only do half of it or a quarter of it, and then by the time we went back and did it again, you know how the story goes. Grass doesn't always get cut at the same time unless you have a riding mower and you're able to devote a full day's work on trying to get a certain area mowed. So we knew that we needed to be a better steward of our time as a family, that it was going to be a very hard transition when my boys got full-time jobs and the mowing and taking care of the property was left up to my husband and I. And I'm just going to be honest with you. My husband is a third shifter. I run 2 other businesses from home, and so trying to maintain grass was really hard. So we talked, and I think I've shared this story before. We've decided to, instead of investing into a riding mower, which this would be the only part of our property that we could use one for, we decided to just invest some of that money into making all these garden spaces so that we could grow as much as we could over here, develop it into an orchard garden, but then cover all this grass in a permaculture system so that we wouldn't have to mow it, and just see year to year to year how far we can go and eventually have this whole orchard covered in such a way that we can spend our time doing other things. The grass gets pretty high pretty fast. This was a hay field. It grows 2 different kinds of hay when we let it go, and so it grows so much faster than any other part of our yard. Good things about permaculture system is it can cut down on your mowing. You can use your grass to grow things. So one of the other good things about the permaculture system is sometimes you can get your items for free. We have gotten all of our mulch for free if you are in an area where you can get that. And so it could be a very cost-effective way to cover a certain spot in your yard or your garden and be able to maintain that without much cost. One of the other pros for having a permaculture system is that you can cut down on your weeds. See, this is the line of grass that we haven't covered yet, and this is the area of mulch that we just covered a few weeks ago. So you can see you don't have to maintain it as much as you would if you were tilling up a garden or having just a field full of tilled rows. Having a permaculture system, which is sort of a deep bed gardening, a no-till garden, creates this idea that it's, well, at least homesteaders want you to believe, it's low maintenance. And there is some truth to that. Another beautiful thing about the permaculture system is you can tuck in all sorts of berry plants and perennials throughout your garden. So I'm sitting over here by our strawberry bed, and this is a strawberry bed that we've added. We kind of boxed it in here But we actually have some strawberry plants that we're going to tuck around some of our fruit trees this fall. So far, the permaculture system seems like a great idea. A lot of people talk about it. It seems like a wonderful thing to do. You can lay down mulch and get no weeds. You can cover grass and not have to mow and spend money on buying gas for your mower. You can plant all sorts of different gardens within your orchard garden, within the permaculture system. And like we did, we framed things out. It doesn't have to be one specific way. We have a tomato bed here. We have a patch of corn that didn't do very well. And then we have our raspberries. So the permaculture system can be a family of all sorts of different plants, fruits and veggies and medicinals and perennials and beautiful things that can all work together. And if you have fruit trees in a permaculture system, which is something that would be a great addition to that and a garden, you can plant all sorts of stuff around the base of your fruit trees and create this guild of sorts to where they help each other out. So you have medicinals, you have perennials, you have flowers, you have strawberries and blueberries and all sorts of things. You can even put tomato plants around them. So the permaculture system, this idea of an orchard that is full of all sorts of places where things can grow and work together, seems wonderful. And that's exactly why we decided to do that in this space. But let me show you some of the things that we learned. So here's 5 cons. 5 things that you need to really consider if this is the right garden for you. So now let's talk about the hard stuff. The things that, some of these things I didn't see when I did my research on a permaculture system. I didn't hear a lot of people talk about the struggles that you would have doing a permaculture system or a no-till garden or a deep bed garden. And these are things you really need to consider if this is something that is good for your garden. I just want to be honest with you because I feel like the homestead community needs to share all of the good things and the bad things. The decisions that you make don't need to just be based on all these glorified pictures on Pinterest or all these big homesteaders who are doing these wonderful things. And a lot of times, that's how we make our decisions. We think, oh, this is wonderful, they're talking about it, this looks great. But we don't see or hear about, most of the time, the hours they spend doing the stuff behind the scenes, that is the hard things or the hard lessons they learn. So I'm going to share with you the 5 things that we've learned about this permaculture deep bed garden system and some of the things that we might change going forward. The first thing we learned is, like they say, you lay cardboard down and then you put mulch on top. This area that we have mulch, we haven't finished laying mulch yet, so you want your mulch to be 4 to 6 inches deep, which is what we've been doing for most of the spots that we dump. We use 5-gallon buckets and we move our mulch by shovel, and everybody works together as a team, and we bring our 5-gallon buckets out here and we dump them, and we barely level it out so that we make sure that our mulch is pretty deep. But the first con of this system, which was something that really, it discouraged me a whole lot. So this is what happens after about a month. Now again, this section we haven't really covered thickly. But over here, that's an elderberry bush that I need to stand up. Friends, I'm going to be real honest with you. This has only been about a month, maybe a little over a month. You see all this stuff growing in the mulch? That's not a permaculture system where I planted those intentionally. Truth is, those are weeds. We layered cardboard really thick and we dumped mulch over this area. We took almost 2 piles of mulch to cover this really thickly. This made me cry, and I will be really open with you. I was so excited about this system. I was so excited to be able to cover this grass and not have to mow it. And one of the things that we realized was this is our high traffic area. This is the entrance to our orchard garden. This is where we would bring all the mulch to dump and the cardboard to dump. And so one of the things you have to consider is that this mulch thins out. It gets compacted down as you're walking over it, as you're hauling stuff, as you're planting, as you're weeding, as you're coming out here to water. And within a month or so, some of this mulch has gotten so thin, this mulch has compacted down and broke down already. We're not just getting weeds in between boxes. I moved the mulch to see if they're coming up and decide what happened, which is what this system is made to do, is the cardboard has composted down so fast. We've had a lot of rain, and this is, like I said, a high traffic area. And so one of the things that you need to think about if you consider this system is, one, are you able to get mulch, like, regularly? Are you able to get cardboard on a regular basis? Last pile of mulch that we have left that has been delivered throughout the year, we had 5 piles of mulch. They went all the way down. Don't mind the tall grass. We have to mow. They went all the way down to the end here. So this is something that you need to really think about. This isn't something that people talked about much. When I was researching it, it was like, oh, call the trucks, and oh, call the wood chipper people, get on the chip list, and you're going to get mulch, and you're going to get so much, you're not going to know what to do with it. Guys, it's really hard to get mulch around here. I don't know about you, but I've called like 7 truck people. But sometimes I don't have time to follow them where they're going and wave them down and stand there and try and get them to get my number and hope they call me. So we put our sign out this spring and we got mulch towards the beginning of summer, and this is all we've gotten. So that raises a really big question for us here on our homestead. If we can't get this stuff very much, and this is the main ingredient that we need for our permaculture system, and we don't have the money to buy it, how are we going to keep that system going? The other thing to consider too is we have drove by about 7 other homesteads looking for free mulch. They have their signs in their yard. A few of them have gotten deliveries. Half of them are within 5 miles of my house. So if we've already struggled getting mulch, and we see now that there's a big group of people who want mulch, and we're now competing with, you know, half a dozen people within 5 miles of our house to get mulch, is that system really sustainable? The other con to this permaculture system is moving mulch is hard work, guys. We did it with shovels and buckets, and we had to walk all the way over there to our orchard garden. We don't have any big equipment. We don't have a big trailer. We don't have a riding mower to haul a wagon. This was a lot of work. And that system's going to need work. It's going to need us to take care, to maintain it. So as that mulch breaks down, and as we have to add to it year after year after year, which is what keeps that system sustainable, that's a lot of work. And yes, we don't have to pull our weeds and mow our grass, but are we able to sustain that permaculture system? Other cons to the permaculture system is we still do have to do some work in maintaining our grass and our weeds. We have to weed trim around the edges. We've bordered out some of these framed in beds so that we could make it a little easier for us to just come along with the weed trimmer and weed trim it. But you're not going to be weed free doing this system, even if it is thick. This is the entryway to our orchard and out, so we need to add another layer of cardboard and another layer of mulch. So there is work to it. It is somewhat lower maintenance compared to mowing grass, tilling gardens, pulling weeds, but it is not maintenance free. Con to a permaculture system is it dries out super fast. Almost 2 to 3 times faster than a tilled garden or a system that has mostly dirt. You're putting dry mulch down. And so we have these sprinkler heads throughout our yard. We have this IV system, I call it, everywhere. And we usually run them once or twice a week. Each garden gets its turn. We've noticed a lot of our plants are drying out so much faster. So we have our 5 cons to the permaculture system: no-till garden, deep bedding, orchard idea. It dries out super fast. High traffic areas break down a lot faster. If you get a lot of rain, your cardboard's going to break down a lot faster. You will get weeds in between the cardboard. You will get weeds coming through the cardboard. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to maintain. This system is not self-sustaining. It's not a permanent system. You have to keep adding living mulch broken down so that in the cardboard, so that it can break down. It can do what it's called to do. It can do how God created the permaculture system to work. Everything breaks down and it feeds each other. But because the system breaks down every year, and some areas will break down within a month, you have to keep adding to that. And it's really hard to get mulch. It might not be that easy to get it. If you have to rely on that to keep the system going, it's not always the wisest idea. So, what are we doing to change this system? How are we making our homestead thrive with this desire to have a permaculture system? Well, we have found some things that we've had to invest money into in order to keep things going and to make it lower maintenance so that we could still use our time on other things and focus more on maintaining our crops and pest control and watering and businesses and other parts of our homestead than just taking care of the permaculture system. One of the things that we have done in the past and that we really like is buying the painter's plastic. You can buy it at the big box stores. We find that it doesn't break down as fast. Yes, it does cost money. But if we're looking to save time, we're looking to make a system that we don't have to maintain constantly, and we're looking at adding a small amount of mulch and making that stretch as far as we can, we're going to lay down something underneath that doesn't break down as fast. So we haven't mulched this area yet. This is our back garden here. And we haven't mulched over there, so we're hoping to mulch this. This will be our pathways. Our crates are just here to keep the wind from blowing it up because life's been crazy. And you plastic it one day and weeks later you mulch it. That's just how it goes here. So this is kind of one of the things that we are doing. The other thing that we're doing is we are buying some straw and hay. We've always done this with our garden beds in the past before, and they've been great at keeping the moisture in, which is the big thing you need to think about when you do an orchard garden, especially if you're growing plants inside that mulched area. So we've been getting straw and laying it in our pathways, but also laying it on our garden beds and laying it around our fruit trees, helping to keep that moisture in since things dry out so much faster. See here, one of the other ways that we are maximizing our mulch and maximizing this permaculture system is we are putting the mulch inside crates that we have an abundance of, and we are using that mulch as a raised bed system, not just a permaculture system. Inside these crates, they won't break down as much. You can control the weeds a little bit better. We actually are laying down feed bags or cardboard under the crates to help control the weeds. And then on the top of these, we will put bags of soil or compost from the chickens and rabbits and fertilizer, so you can amend the beds better. In fact, we just noticed today that our green beans are turning pretty yellow, so we can go through this row and amend it with some fish fertilizer. And then we have some tomatoes back here that are pretty sad and dry, and we need to amend that with some more stuff as well. So we are using that little bit of mulch that we can get, and we're trying to make it stretch in many different areas that we have. These two beds are actually going to be our strawberry beds. We're planting more strawberries in there. And that's another way too that you can maximize mulch if you don't get much of it. Plant perennial plants in it that will come back year after year. So if you have to amend your bed, you're amending that same plant and you're giving it fertilizer, but you also don't have to keep taking stuff out and planting stuff and taking stuff out and planting. And so we're going to do 2 strawberry bed rows here and kind of have a perennial permaculture system in crates. So one of the other things, like I said back there, we are using straw and hay for pathways. We also have decided to use straw and hay around most of the things that we are growing. All of the garden spots that we have created back here, we have covered with straw and hay. That way we don't have to rely on our mulch to be the deep bedding system, the no-till system around the plants that we're growing. Now there is a con on straw and hay, and a lot of people will tell you they don't like buying it because you'll inevitably end up growing straw and hay. Now we have done this for 6 years, and this is honestly the first year that we have bought straw from this guy. We bought for the last 3 or 4 years, and we are actually have straw seed coming up. So what I'm doing is coming out here with my rake, and I'm raking it and trying to pull up that seed so it doesn't get rooted down. What we are doing to learn from our lesson is to figure out a better way to cover the spots of weeds. I think we are going to get plastic for over here and layer plastic down and mulch on top of that. So, what do you think about our permaculture system? What do you think about the changes that we are trying to do? I know they're not perfect, and I'm not exactly sure how they'll work. Thinking about, as I'm editing this, I'm thinking, maybe it's not the wisest idea to put the wood chips in the grass. They're not going to go very far, and we might not get much more. Maybe it's better to put the straw down in the pathways and use the wood chips in the garden boxes. And so sometimes that's just how homesteading goes. You think about all of the ideas that you have and you try and make it work. But sometimes halfway through, you have to change and you have to realize, this isn't really as exciting and as happy and as wonderful as people say it is. And then you're trying to find what works for you. Every family's going to have a different garden and a different weather and different finances and different accessibility to things like wood chips. Every family is going to be able to, every family is going to have a different dynamic when it comes to work. And so our family looks different than your family, and we're trying to find ways to embrace this life that we have and our property and steward what God has put in front of us within all of those things that are different from everybody else, within our income, within our schedule, within the ability of knowing that, we're close to being empty nest. And to be honest, there are hard days when I don't want to be out in the garden, but I would rather go out in the garden and take care of garden beds when I'm actually growing things than mow grass and pull weeds in areas that I'm not really doing much in. And so you get to learn all those things about you. And one thing that I love that the Daughtries have said is know what your property does well and try and maximize that. And so we have taken that and thought about, what does our property do well? Well, that side of our property grows hay really well, and we don't want to manage hay. And we can grow berries and garden things and medicinals and herbs. And one of the things that our family does really well is our family does slow living really well. We don't have a big schedule, but because my husband's on third shift and because we're close to being empty nesters, we know that what our family's doing well right now is sending our kids out into the world and helping our children, who are young adults and adults now, figure out what it is they want to do. And so that's a whole nother season of gardening and maintaining and not having the help that you used to have in years past, and not being able to rely on that. And so we have to think about all those things when we homestead. So if you've done this permaculture system, I encourage you to keep encouraging people with what works for you. We still love a lot of YouTubers and a lot of our local friends who do this system. And we love that we can encourage each other and help each other embrace their life that they have by sharing what's working and what's not working for us. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you were encouraged by my kind of scattered way of showing you what has been working and what's been on my mind and what we're trying to take care of. I hope that you don't give up on gardening and don't give up on this idea of permaculture and don't give up on this idea of no-till. And I pray that God provides all the things that you need to make all of these dreams come true on your homestead. We're praying for that for us, and we know He will, because He cares about all these little things. And so I would love to hear what you are doing in your gardens and anything that you think would be, an idea for us to try. We are open to wisdom. Now, I have to go outside and work at my permaculture system and try and get some of that grass cut and go through those flower beds and do some things that I need to do. But until next time, I pray blessings over you and your family and your homestead, and I hope that you are embracing this life that God's given you, even if it looks so different than mine and so different than many other people. God has given you your life for a reason. And stay tuned for some more videos on our homestead. See you later, friends.